We finally got to see a Michigan football game. How good or bad was this team? What was working, what wasn't working? All right here on Monday's version of The Drip. Labor Day. It is Monday. Weirdly, we have already gotten through a Jim Harbaugh press conference. I was going to include some of that here. I don't think it's worthwhile today, to be honest. But we finally got to see Michigan go out there with a 51-7 victory over Colorado State. I'm pretty sure I predicted 51-13. So pretty close. Obviously, I was not giving enough credit to the defense, and the defense is what really stood out, in my opinion, in this game. 7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. These kind of jibes with everything I had expected of this Michigan team, particularly on that side of the ball, for the sense of there's so many guys who had experience last year that finally got their opportunity to really come in and shine this year. Was the pass rush a bit better than I thought it was going to be? I would say so, but the game kind of played out just very similar to how I expected, just a little bit better, right? Early on in the game, it was very eerily reminiscent of what we've seen in the beginning of the season defensively the last couple of years, where teams just move the ball with seeming impunity to kind of start out. And going back and doing a rewatch of the game, it is exactly kind of what I figured watching the game live from the sidelines was, once Michigan kind of figured out what they were going up against, once they kind of got rid of those we haven't played a game type jitters, suddenly they were able to hone in, and boy, did they. The air raid was no problem for this defense. The pass rush really got after it, and there are so many players that were involved that made it just absolutely incredible. That from what we were able to see, Mozzie Smith was an absolute force. Yeah, he only had, one sack or tackle for loss or something like that. That doesn't really do him justice. The stats don't do him justice for the type of force that he was in the middle. But Mike Morris, same kind of deal when it came to his stats, really just pushing the pocket and kind of flushing Clay Millen into the arms of some other guys. Braden McGregor was really good. Right there, so often. A lot of times he missed. He would get close and then would whiff, but it was his pressure that forced the interception by Rod Moore, who was just sitting down right there in the zone. Clay Millen didn't even see him. Perfect position to do so. Eyabi Anoma, first snap, gets a sack. You can see the speed right there. Second snap, almost gets a sack. He was everywhere you wanted him to be. Just phenomenal. And then you got to call out those freshmen and say, what an incredible job from Mason Graham, who multiple times throughout the game, he got a sack, but multiple times he was really pushing that pocket from the interior. Derek Moore, it seemed like every snap he was out there, he was making a difference. It was just an all-around incredible effort. Now, I tweeted during the game, I thought it was really funny, early on in the game, Eyabi Anoma got the second sack of the game. So, the first person to get a sack was Mike Sainristil. Who would have thought a year ago you'd be like, yeah, Michigan's 2 sack leaders. And they're still sack leaders because no one had more than 1 sack in this game. Who would have thought that you'd be sitting there saying, yeah, Michigan's 2 sack leaders. Mike Sainristil, who was a wide receiver at that time, and Eyabi Anoma, the former Alabama 5-star transfer guy. No one would have saw that coming. So that is hilarious. That is amazing. I thought the linebackers played really well. And here's one of the things I was thinking about this morning is we still haven't really seen what this group can be from the linebacker position, because one of the main starters, Nikhai Hill-Green, was in street clothes. But Junior Colson was everywhere, led the team in tackles, unsurprisingly, was just fast. They were swarming to the ball. Michael Barrett was incredible in this game. Kalel Mullings had a decent game too, I thought. They really just kind of were everywhere doing everything. The secondary, again, no complaints. When I look at the defense, there's very little that I can look at and say that didn't work out so well. The only thing that I thought really needed to be shored up is contain, because a couple times, whether it's the quarterback or just getting really baited to one side, and then there was Clay Millen was able to do a throwback to someone else once he was flushed, and that whole side of the field was unaccounted for, and a guy would be able to run for a first down. That was pretty much the only complaint I had, and it was barely there, right? They got to over 200 yards overall on the game. Offensively, Colorado State was, but it took deep into the fourth quarter before it was even able to get there. For a while, they were moving backwards. And so really, the last drive and the first drive is where they accumulated most of their yards. So huge credit to that Michigan defense. Now, offensively, I know you all saw what I saw. I'm not as willing to just say Cade was awful. I don't think Cade was necessarily awful. His first few passes were right on the money and were drops. But I'll say this, he did himself zero favors. I thought the game ended up being catastrophic for Cade. Because in a game in which he needed to go out there and prove that he took a step forward, or like he said after the game, I'm playing my best football, it didn't show on the field. Now, it sounds like he's getting a vote of confidence from Jim Harbaugh. He continues to say good things about Cade even today, Monday morning. But I thought it was catastrophic because when JJ came in, the offense was electric. Outside of that, it was just kind of very ho-hum and not what you want to see. It did not look like a continuation of what we saw at the end of last year. It was more spring game than it was Big Ten championship game until JJ came in. And if you've been listening to me on the Locked On Wolverines podcast, or if you read my work on Wolverines Wire, then you know I'm a very big Cade defender. And I'm not saying that what happened on Saturday was indefensible. There certainly are defenses, but it was uninspiring. And when you are in a quarterback battle as he is, that's not what you want. Especially with JJ getting the start up against what is a potentially historically bad Hawaii team. The spread being 51 points right now and moving up. That's not what you want if you want to keep that job. I thought that JJ in the same game against the same defense showed you more, even on, I know it was more limited snaps, but he came in, went 4 for 4, 50 yards rushing. The offense moved much better. Cade, red zone, not good. Now, if you could say he wasn't put into great positions to succeed, but at the same time, Cade didn't do what JJ did, which was come out and really take control in order to score points. JJ really did that. I've been the last person out there saying that JJ needs to start, and I'm not saying that yet. We need to see what happens in this next game, because if JJ goes out and does not perform well against a bad Hawaii team, or just performs okay, and we'll assuredly see both quarterbacks, then that compounds things that much further. But based off of what I saw in week 1, I don't want to overreact to 1 week. I don't think that's a good way to do anything. Based off of week 1, it feels now like it's becoming JJ's job to lose rather than Cade's. And that's not where you want to be if you're Cade McNamara. Offensive line was somewhat patchwork, of course, with Ryan Hayes being a surprise scratch in street clothes on the day. His replacement, Carson Barnhart, did well until his injury, and then they moved Trevor Keegan out to left guard. Giovanni El-Hadi into left tackle, and Giovanni El-Hadi into left guard. I thought that the offensive line played okay. There were a couple really bright spots. I agree with what Jim Harbaugh said. Trevor Keegan looked really good. In general, it was a little bit more of a mixed bag at left tackle than it was at left guard. He was playing really good at left guard. Olu Oluwatimi was sensational. Upon my rewatch, he was constantly in the second or third level, just plowing guys over. Not to disparage Andrew Vistardis, but he is the obvious upgrade I expected him to be. Zach Zinter was phenomenal. I do have big questions about Trente Jones, who played way more snaps than anyone else. Once the second string was out there, it was still Trente Jones. I think that's probably part and parcel with Carson Barnhart being out and them just not having bodies. But I thought he was just very okay. A couple times he got bullied. He was responsible for the 1 sack that was given up. And that's not what you want to see. An offensive line is only as good as its weakest link. And high hopes for Trente. This is his first time finally getting to start, really finally getting to shine, not just being a sixth lineman or a garbage time player. So there is usually an adjustment. You don't want to see them having issues against a team like Colorado State. He got a bit, but you've got more games. You make big improvement from week 1 to week 2. He's got 2 more games to really start to figure things out before you get into Big Ten play. So I'm not that concerned yet, of course. Running backs look phenomenal. It's funny because I remember I left the game feeling kind of disappointed with the run game. And look at the stats and say, oh, it was so good, but we have such high expectations for Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards that it's just getting mere 200-something yards feels like a disappointment. Tight ends were involved, not particularly existent in the pass game, not as much as you would expect. A couple catches from that position group. Colston Loveland with the big one late in the game, and Eric All with the big one late in the first half. Luke Schoonmaker got a first down. So those are the things that you want to see. Receivers, aside from Rowan Wilson and a couple jet sweeps to AJ Henning, nothing really to write home about. Cornelius Johnson needs to catch the ball. If you're the number 1 receiver, you can't have 3 drops in the game. You just can't. And that's been kind of an issue for him dating back to last year as well. So I'd like to see more targets for guys like Andrell Anthony. It was great to see Ronnie Bell get his first catch back, but he also had a drop as well. So it's a mixed bag, but we'll see what happens next week when Michigan moves on to Hawaii. Let's continue on later with the drip. That's going to be Monday's edition. Just recapping the game. Thank you for watching. We'll be back soon.